Greetings, I'm Professor Hobo, and welcome to another HOBOTECH product review. In May of 22, I reviewed the all-new JACKERY 2000 Pro, and it turned some heads with its all-new folding handle design and built-in charger with the UPS feature. A few months later, I reviewed its little brother, the 1000 Pro. Fast forward to today, and JACKERY launches its biggest power station to date, the new 3000 Pro. With 3000 watts of power, 1400 watts of solar support, and debuting a brand new mobile app for remote access, we have to ask, is it any good? Let's find out.
HOBOTECH.
As for the battery inside, it's a 3024 watt hour NMC lithium-ion battery rated at 2000 cycles to 70% in battery saver mode. As for size and weight, it's approximately 19 by 14 by 15 inches and weighs in at only 63 pounds. As for the display, it's exactly the same as the 2000 and 1000 Pro. It shows both input and output watts, charge and discharge time, battery percentage with icon. As for the inverter, it's a 3000 watt pure sine inverter with 4 20 amp outlets and a TT30R 30 amp RV outlet. As for ways to charge, there are the typical 3. First, of course, is AC wall charging at 1800 watts using the included cable. This will charge the JACKERY from 0 to full in only 2.4 hours. As for solar charging, it offers dual MPPT controllers, so you actually have 2 inputs here on the back, capable of 1400 watts of solar total for charging this in only 3 to 4 hours with the sun. And finally, of course, it comes with a 12 volt charging cable, which is good for charging from a vehicle in 35 hours. As for 12 volt outputs, the JACKERY only offers one on this model, and that is the standard 13.2 volt regulated 12 volt cigarette lighter socket, good for 10 amps. As for USB outputs, this offers a pair of USB-A quick charge ports and a pair of 100 watt power delivery USB-C ports. Note that these are all output only. There is no way to charge the JACKERY with USB. As for other features, JACKERY decided to join the crowd and now offers a Bluetooth app for this product that also supports Wi-Fi. So yes, you can control the 3000 Pro with your mobile device remotely. As for the warranty, JACKERY does offer a 5-year warranty on this product when you register it on their website. And of course, I took the JACKERY 3000 Pro into my secret laboratory here where I performed all kinds of crazy experiments on it, including, yes, of course, a double-fisted battery capacity test. As for the results of the DC battery capacity test, this JACKERY scored 2,618 watt hours out of 3024 for 87% usable capacity. As for the results of the AC battery capacity test, it fared 2,540 watt hours out of 3024 or 84%. Now these numbers are average to slightly above average for the industry. Previous Pro models scored a touch higher on the AC test, but this one scored a bit lower due to its massive 3000 watt inverter. The bigger the inverter, the more wasteful it's going to be. Pure sine wave check under load, and it's rocking 120 volts, 60 hertz at a 1500 watt load. Inverter capacity test. This is where we determine how far can we push the 3000 watt inverter in this JACKERY. So I'm currently running at a 3000 watt load. Let's see how much further past 3000 watts we can push it. Okay, we're at 3000 watts. 3,300 watts, 34, 35. It ain't going any higher than 3,500. And it shuts down. So the results are this can pull about 3,500 watts for a few seconds and then it shuts down. It seems like once it hits 3,300, 3,400 watts, it's only going to give you a few seconds then shut down. That's part of the surge capacity of this. This next test is the sustained cooling or the heat soak test. This is where we run the inverter at its highest capacity for 5 minutes, at least 5 minutes, to make sure that there's nothing funky going on, like it's not going to start smoking or drinking, carry on, or worse, catching fire. Now, being a Jackery, I wouldn't expect us to have any of those problems, but we got to test it anyway. 3,000 watts. It is now running 3,000 watts, no problems for 5 minutes. So hey, let's try the test again, crank it up a little higher. All right, so now we're going to try 3,100 watts and see if that will run for 5 minutes. And no, it only took 1 minute, and at 3,100 watts, it overloaded. So while the Jackery did pass the heat soak test at its rated 3,000 watts, there is no room for additional power. So if you need anything over 3,000 watts, this won't cut it. However, if you need less than 3,000 watts, which covers pretty much every household appliance, then you should have no problem. So just how loud is the Jackery under a 3,000 watt load? Here we are about a meter away. 50 decibels, that's very impressive. This actually might be the quietest Jackery yet. And I noticed the fan spools up almost instantly depending on the load. So at 1,500 watt load, the fan spools way down to the point where you can barely hear it. At 3,000 watts, which is the maximum capacity of the inverter itself, this 51 decibels is really quiet. Next is the max charge rate test. This is where we determine how fast can we charge the Jackery. Now, Jackery has 2 MPPT controllers built into it. Each one can take up to 12 amps from 12 to 60 volts DC from solar panels, or in this case, simulated solar. And in the book, it says a maximum of 1,400 watts total combined between the 2 inputs. So I had to rig something special up for this Jackery because I needed to have 2 48 volt inputs. So I have my typical variable voltage charger here, and I have another one in the back that's 48 volts, 37 amps. It can do 1,800 watts. Now, when they say 1,400 watts total, they mean combining the 2 ports together. So you would think 700 watts each port. But let's see what actually happens when I turn these chargers on. You can see here we're down to 63%. That should give us plenty of leeway to get maximum input. So let's go ahead and turn this one on first. And I have this automatically set to 60 volts, and the maximum amps on this are 18.2. Now, after waiting for a few minutes, it settles in at 861 watts, or 50 volts at 18.2 amps. Now, let's go ahead and shut this one off, and I'm going to go ahead and plug the one in the back, and you'll see we should have similar results. Yeah, and this is what I need to get myself through some of these tests. So, live long and prosper. And it is now supplying power to the second input. And just waiting for this to equalize. The second charger you can see is doing 865 watts. So let's flick on the second one and see what happens. Now you really get a high-pitched whine coming out of the Jackery as it fires up some smaller fans, obviously, to cool the MPPT controllers. Now while we give that a minute to max out, let's see how loud the fans are now, because it's definitely more annoying than it was when it was discharging. Interestingly enough, it says 49 decibels, so it's actually quieter. It just, I think because it's a higher pitch, it seems more annoying to me. Now I let this run for a minute. Let's see what it leveled off to. Interestingly, it leveled off at 1,186 watts. That's 200 watts short of the 1,400 watts. Now the book does say this will do 1,400 watts of solar. This might assume Jackery Solar Saga panels in a certain configuration in order to get that 1,400 watts total. But my simulated solar is using these high-end, it's about $500 worth of chargers charging this thing right now. They can definitely output the power that's needed by the Jackery. So I don't understand why it's topping out at 1,200 watts, but I got to write that down for my testing. This topped out at 1,200 watts in a lab, pumping maximum from 2 chargers into 2 MPPT controllers. Now, this Jackery has an app. And inside the app, you can choose between quiet mode or fast charging mode. So I had it on fast charging for all my testing. I just put it on quiet charging mode, and I noticed an immediate difference in the charging speed. So you can see now we've dropped down to 783 watts combined of both inputs. And that was after I put it on quiet charging mode in the Jackery app. And it has certainly got a lot quieter. Let's see just how quieter. So all the way down to 42 decibels on the quiet charging mode. This thing, I can barely hear it running. I hear a couple little fans in there spinning somewhat slowly. It's still charging at 800 watts, which is pretty good. And this thing is dead quiet. So just how fast is it AC charging? Like the other Pro model Jackeries, this one does have the charger built in. So there is no external power brick. You just plug the cord, that bright orange cord you see right there. Now this is a thing for the new Pro models. All the inputs are on the back. In the old Jackery days, everything was on the front, but Jackery decided to change with the Pro models and put all the outputs on the front and all the inputs on the back. I do prefer it that way. You don't necessarily have to have the inputs in the front of a bunch of cords hanging out. Okay, so I currently have it in max rate charge mode, which is 1800 watts, and it's inputting 1730 watts right now, and it's doing it pretty darn quietly. So 47 decibels when charging at max rate from the wall. That's pretty good. Now I'm going to go into the Jackery app, just like I did before, and put it in quiet charge mode and see how much quieter it gets. Just like with solar, the quiet charge mode drops the charge rate to 800 watts. I can tell you without even testing, it's the exact same fan noise. So we're talking, what, 42 decibels? I think Jackery, in this case, they decided to go with the big slow-moving fans, and it really brings the decibel level down. This thing is very pleasant to listen to. That's one of the most annoying things about these larger power stations, is because they're so powerful, those fans on some of those models are just really, really loud. It's almost too annoying to be in the same room.
I'm afraid you're just too darn loud. Next, please.
That's not going to be the issue with Jackery. Double thumbs up to the Jackery engineers. They did an excellent job of keeping this thing very, very quiet. Your next question is going to be, what about simultaneous charging? Can you charge the Jackery from the wall and solar at the same time for a faster charge rate? Well, I have both DC chargers plugged in simultaneously, and I also have the Jackery plugged into the wall. So let's see what the total input is. You can see right there, we're pulling in about 2200 watts. So it does in fact allow simultaneous charging. In fact, like other brands, it seems like this prioritizes solar over AC. So if you actually have maximum solar coming into the Jackery and you plug this into the wall at the same time, all it's going to do is take the minimum amount from the wall and prioritize solar. It actually charges pretty darn fast when everything is plugged in all at the same time. So what about an uninterruptible power supply mode, or UPS mode? A lot of these large solar generators nowadays, the ones that plug directly into the wall, have a relay inside that will send power from the wall outlets to the outlets on the device and then use that power from the wall instead of using the battery. Basically, it does this so it doesn't wear out the battery by having the battery constantly power the inverter. Some people call it UPS. EcoFlow made up a term called EPS for emergency power supply because it doesn't switch faster than 30 milliseconds. I think in order for it to be considered an actual true UPS, it's got to switch at less than 20 milliseconds. Now, a true UPS is going to switch at 0 milliseconds, but there aren't too many of those on the market that are solar generators. What I found interesting is that in none of the marketing material for Jackery, including the entire user manual, there's no mention of switchover times, UPS, EPS, backup switching, whatever. It doesn't mention this feature at all. All it says in the book is it says when you have it plugged into the wall in charging mode, it will accept 15 amps from the wall outlet, which is typical. But in bypass mode, it will accept up to 12 amps of charging. So they're calling it bypass mode, but we're going to test and see just how fast this thing switches over. Now, a laptop computer without the battery is probably one of the most sensitive things. And if it doesn't switch over fast enough being a computer, it'll crash or shut down. So I use an old laptop without a battery in it for this test. But first, let's see what they mean by bypass mode. So already, I'm going to go ahead and plug this into the wall and turn it on. And I have the inverter already on. You can see this is lit up. I have this here so you can tell that the inverter is running. I have the pure sign over here. It says 121 volts, 60 hertz, because it is running from the inverter right now. Let me go ahead and turn the power on from the wall. So I flip this switch. A relay will click. It just clicked right there. And now it's going to start charging the battery from the wall because this is not fully charged yet. So this says 116 volts, and that's because it's running from wall power now and not the inverter. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn off the wall power. I'm going to go ahead and turn on the inverter. And now it's going to start charging the battery from the wall because this is not fully charged yet. So this says 116 volts, and that's because it's running from wall power now and not the inverter. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn off the wall power. I'm going to go ahead and turn on the inverter. You'll watch the voltage change. 3, 2, 1. There's a little flat spot there on the wave for a split second, then it bumps up to 121 volts, which is, again, running off the built-in inverter on the Jackery. So I'm going to turn the switch back on, the relay will kick on, and there you go, instantaneous changeover back to 118 volts. Now, because this has a 3,000 watt inverter, and it's only limited to charging from the wall at 15 amps, that means there's a situation where the wall power coming in is going to be exceeded by what you're pulling out. So I'm going to go ahead and put this heater on the floor that's plugged in. You can see as a heater fires up, the input is lowering and lowering and lowering because it can only take in so much from the wall. Right now I'm taking about 1600 watts from the wall. That said, it was too much. Like the heater was too much for this because I actually have a little heater and a big heater. That combination was too much. Now it is charging back at its 1800 watt normal speed and outputting nothing from the inverter, which you can see just shut off. Let's do that again and I'll zoom in so you can see what's happening. The inverter's outputting 200 watts and we're still charging the battery at 1300 watts. So now as the heater fires up, you'll see the input go down and the output go up. So there you go, now we only have that much power coming in to charge the battery and that much going out to the heater. Now I'll go ahead and put the heater on high. This should pretty much quickly create an overload condition because the input is basically, it's not being able to take any more power in from the wall. And there it goes, it's shut off. So take that into consideration. If you're buying this Jackery to use it as an uninterruptible power supply, be aware that if you exceed 1800 watts at the wall outlet, this thing's going to shut down. It's going to shut the inverter off and it's going to turn off all your devices anyway that you have plugged in. So that's the limitation of the UPS mode, which they call bypass mode in this. Now, one thing we don't know yet is just how fast does it switch over. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my laptop and we're going to check and see, is it switch over fast enough to keep a laptop going? All right, so I have my old laptop. You guys have seen this test before. It is booted up and plugged into the inverter in the Jackery. Right now it's running off of inverter power. So let's go ahead and turn on power from the wall and that will switch over. It will instantly power the laptop and I will wait for it to start charging. The Jackery is now charging. Now, as soon as I turn off this switch, it's going to go back to inverter power, but how fast is it going to switch over? So what this is doing is simulating a blackout. You have your Jackery plugged into the wall, the electricity is currently on, the lights are on, and you're on your laptop. Place your bets. How good is the UPS feature in the Jackery that they don't advertise? Is it going to stay on or is it not going to stay on? Place your bets. We're going to go ahead and switch the power off now. 3, 2, 1. It stayed on. Let's repeat that test just to be absolutely sure about it. And note too that the Jackery is not fully charged. I've gotten some flack in the past about doing this test when the power station's not fully charged. But you have to think about this. The power station shouldn't need to be fully charged for this test to pass, because whether the battery's full or not, the switchover should still be the same speed whether or not the battery's charging or not. Otherwise, it's just badly designed. So we have the Jackery charging at 1700 watts from the wall. It is powering the laptop directly at a whopping 26 watts. Let's go ahead and turn the power off again just to double check our results. 3, 2, 1. Laptop is unfazed. Now, just to prove to you that the laptop is being powered by the Jackery, I'll just go ahead and unplug it. And there you go, it turns off. So yeah, the switching relay in the Jackery is fast enough to run a computer. So you don't have to worry about your files getting corrupted or your computer shutting off during a blackout if you have the Jackery plugged into the wall. So what about testing the 30 amp RV output? It's really not necessary. I tested the inverter. All these outlets are all wired up together, so if these work, that's going to work. Just to prove it to you, I'm going to use this tester. You can hear that when I stick it into the hot side of the outlet, it beeps. So the 30 amp output works. So let's go ahead and move over to testing the DC. And I know you guys want to know, is the Jackery output regulated? They all are. They have been for the entire history of the Jackery product line. And this is at 13.2 volts. But more importantly, let's check and see, does it do 10 amps output? There we are at 8 amps. And there we are at 10 amps, no problem. Now there is one major design change in the Pro models that may throw off some of the old Jackery users. There's only one power button now to power the USB and the 12 volt at the same time. In the past, the 12 volt had its own button. That's no longer the case. This button here powers the 12 volt and all the USB. There's no way to turn them on and off separately. So what about power delivery output? The Jackery offers two 100 watt power delivery outputs. Now these are not bi-directional. You cannot charge the Jackery through these ports, but you can charge up laptops and other stuff like that that requires power delivery. Now I'd have two power bins up here. Each one can take 100 watts of power delivery. I have them both plugged in. They're both pretty much dead. So it's maxing out at 197 watts. Last but not least, the musician's favorite amp interference test. This is where we determine, can you run an audio amplifier off the inverter? Is it too noisy? Is a bunch of buzzing going to come out of the speaker, or is it going to be nice and clean? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and hit the power button now. 3, 2, 1. So there you have it. It's nice and clean. All you hear is the normal static from the speaker and no crazy buzz. So does that mean the Jackery is good enough to rock out in your band or use for PA systems or anything like that? Absolutely, it is definitely clean enough. It is possibly clean enough for ham radio use as well. So it only took everyone else in the industry for Jackery to finally come out with their own app. So they do have a very basic app, and when I say basic, I mean that's what it looks like. It's a very basic app, but it does work. It seems to work quite well. Let me show it to you real quick. So you can see it has a percentage of the battery, input and output watt. Of course, down here at the bottom, you can turn on and off the AC and DC remotely. You can see here at the bottom, it gives you an option to have the screen on for 2 hours, 2 minutes, or completely off. And then you click on the extra settings here. It gives you some charging options. Now this one is the important one, fast charging mode. So you can switch here between fast charging mode and quiet charging mode, which we did that earlier. Another really interesting and important setting that some of you are going to really like is battery settings. You can see I have it set to fully use, so it will fully use the battery from 0 to 100%. But if you put it in battery saving mode, it says the battery saving mode will limit power consumption and charge capacity. So we go ahead and click OK. And what it does now, you can see this graphic changes. And what it's telling you is that now it'll charge from 15% to 85%. It won't let you charge more than 85% stated charge of the battery, and it will cut you off when you get to 15% stated charge of the battery. So it's going to keep the battery in between these two numbers, and that will extend the life of your battery, according to Jackery, by 30%. Now you can also choose hibernation mode. How long do you want it to stay on before it turns off automatically? So you can put it on never, and that's the first time in Jackery history they allow you to keep the device on forever until the battery completely dies. There's also a firmware upgrade section, which doesn't seem to really be working because it keeps saying access failed, and I do have my Wi-Fi plugged into the Jackery, but that's all she wrote. There is really nothing to this. So what do I think about the biggest Jackery to date? Well, the lack of LFP tech and battery expandability are Debbie Downers. However, it's actually a gosh darn solid offering. It has everything short of a wireless charging pad and a lamp that I think most folks would want. With the RV output, you can power your entire RV up to about 25 amps, including the air conditioner. And with the dual power delivery outputs, you can charge 2 high-end laptops at the same time, along with a pair of modern cell phones. It's super easy to use. In fact, maybe the easiest to use Jackery to date, since it has less buttons and less clutter up front. I do like the fact that all the inputs are now on the back. It's also really easy to carry with these built-in handles, and of course it does have the telescoping luggage-style handle with the wheels, making it very easy to move around this 63 pounds. In all honesty, this thing is ready to run with the big boys. And finally, with the remote app, you can control the Jackery without needing to touch it, which is important if it's sitting on the ground or in a cubby in your RV. The inverter output is clean enough to power your band, and the UPS-EPS bypass feature switches fast enough to keep computers and routers going in a blackout. They're even launching this at a reasonable and competitive price. I can say that this has to be the best Jackery yet, and it is a rock-solid purchase for many folks that are looking for something lighter and more portable than the other kids in the playground offer. Product price. The 3000 Pro retails for $27.99, which, being under $1 a watt, is the lowest price per watt Jackery has offered on any of their recent products. For example, both the 1000 Pro and 2000 Pro currently go for over $1 per watt. Now, as a HOBOTECH viewer, you're not going to pay $27.99 for the 3000 Pro because I nabbed an exclusive limited time discount code that'll actually knock a few $100 off the price of both the 3000 Pro by itself and the solar generator bundle with 400 watts of solar panels. Now, I'm not exactly sure how much it's going to knock off, but if you want to find out, click the link below in the description of this video, add the discount code at checkout to see what the final cost is. As for competition, this Jackery being 3000 watts means it's a direct competitor against the 3000 watt BLUETTI AC300 and a 3600 watt ECOFLOW Delta Pro. The two major differences are that the Jackery is, of course, still using NMC batteries while the others are using lithium iron phosphate, and that the Jackery offers no battery expansion capability. However, both the ECOFLOW Delta Pro and BLUETTI weigh over 800 pounds, whereas the Jackery is only 63 pounds. That's what Jackery is all about: portability. By cubic inches, it's also quite a bit smaller than the 3000 watt competition. So it really comes down to your personal choice which one to go with depending on your needs. Jackery as a brand is more about power on the go, be it camping, having a cookout on the beach, tailgating, or running stuff on a boat, RV, or cabin. Now, this one can obviously be used in the home as well to power things like refrigerators, microwaves, TVs, fans, air conditioners, heaters, and the like. It should even have enough power to start a furnace during a blackout, so it could keep your heat on. What about recommended solar? Well, Jackery does use a proprietary solar panel setup, so they strongly encourage you to use their solar panel in bundle packages they call solar generators. Because of the difficulty in using third-party panels, I'd suggest if you don't have panels already, just get the bundle with their panels, as they are high quality and high output, but do cost a premium. Now, if you want a more permanent, lower cost solution, I'd recommend the BOUGERV 200 watt or Renogy 320 watt panels that can be found on hobotech.tv/Amazon under solar kits. You're also going to need a pair of MC4 to 8mm adapters under the solar adapter section. Links to these are going to be below in the description. Jackery does provide a pair of 7909 to 8020, or what I call thick pin to thick pin adapters in the box. With both the MC4 to 8mm and the 8020 adapter, you can use any third-party panel that you like in series up to 60 volts into each of the solar inputs. And remember that each one of these inputs on the Jackery maxes out at 800 watts of solar. So if you're interested in the 3000, the link and discount code is in the description of this video below. I'm also going to put a link here at the bottom of the screen along with a QR code that you could scan on a mobile device that'll take you on over to the Jackery store page where you can check out the Jackery 3000 Pro. Thanks for watching. If you learned something today, don't forget to give me that thumbs up below. And if you're not a subscriber already, you know what to do. That's it for now. Till next time.
Odin commands you to like and subscribe, and clean my litter box.
If your search for something is a pain in the neck, go to YouTube and watch HOBOTECH, cause he's a testing this and he's a probing that. He's even been probing Odin's cat. If you wanna get all this Odin back, go to HOBOTECH. Yeah!